Hi friends, my name is Emily and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a little book haul because I just had my last staff appreciation discount at Indigo. So I have recently left Indigo. This is my second week at Q4. I'm not intentionally repping the Q4 merch. This t-shirt is just soft and clean. So before I left Indigo, I used my staff discount to pick up some things that I am interested in and to pre-order a bunch of things that I am excited about for 2021 because the discount applies to pre-orders, so snuck that all in there. So let's start with the books that I physically have my hands on at the moment. The first being To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. Before the world went to shit in like February, we had one in-person book club and we read A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and it was like feminist, more feminist Star Trek, and I loved it. I am super excited to pick up this. Instead of terraforming planets to sustain human life, explorers of the galaxy transform themselves. At the turn of the 22nd century, scientists make a breakthrough in human spaceflight. Through a revolutionary method known as somaforming, astronauts can survive in hostile environments off Earth using synthetic biological supplementations. With the fragile body no longer a limiting factor, human beings are at last able to explore exoplanets long suspected to harbor life. So this is about one of those explorers, and I am excited. Becky Chambers is pushing the fantastic to its logical extremes. And many times I've talked on this channel about how anything that falls under the fantastic, so science fiction, fantasy, horror, fairy tales, all of that sort of has this radical potential to push boundaries because it is this fantasy space where once the rules of the world are established, you just have to follow them. They don't have to mirror real life. What I find continuously disappointing is how often authors just mimic real life in genres that have the potential to be so subversive and interesting. And Becky Chambers, I feel like, is to a certain extent doing that. A Long Way to a Small and Angry Planet, she has like an interspecies relationship between like a lizard person and a woman. And so like just pushing those boundaries, and I love it. I love her work. So I'm excited for that. I also picked up How to Pronounce Knife by this lovely human, whose name I will not butcher. Yes, there's a lot of buzz around this collection of short stories, and she's actually in Horizon. It's this Canadian feminist magazine that I signed up for a subscription. I believe she's the cover. Yes, she is. She's the cover model? She's not the cover model. She's on the cover of the magazine. Does that make her the cover model? So this is about characters struggling to find their bearings in unfamiliar territory, illuminating their hopes, disappointments, love affairs, acts of defiance, and above all, their pursuit of a place to belong. In spare, intimate prose, charged with emotional power and a sly wit, she paints an indelible portrait of watchful children, wounded men, and restless women caught between cultures, languages, and values. I am very excited because I've just read this article about her, so I decided to pick this up. And again, it's a short story collection, so I don't know much about it because each one is its own little thing. So the next book that I picked up I thought would be fun for a winter, and that is This Winter by Alice Oseman. So Alice Oseman wrote Heartstopper, the graphic novels. She wrote Solitaire, Radio Silence, I Was Born for This, and then this is, I believe, picking up, yes it is, with Tori, Charlie, and Oliver Spring, who are featured in Solitaire and Heartstopper. And I thought this would just be like a fun seasonal read. Also, I do really enjoy Alice Oseman's writing. I think she does really interesting teen protagonists. I think she may be a new fave, maybe. Possibly. Like, she may be one of those authors that I buy sort of indiscriminately without knowing what the plot is about. We all have those authors, and Alice Oseman might be that for me. The next book that I picked up is The Memory of Babel. So this is The Mirror Visitor Book 3 by Christelle Dabos, translated from the French. I believe this is 3 of 4. And so I read the first one and it gave me strong Hayao Miyazaki vibes. My mom has read the first 2, so I thought I would pick up the 3rd while I still have the discount. This is a fantasy world that has a really interesting magic system. It's quite cruel. It has a lot of steampunk vibes, and I think I probably need to reread the first book before jumping into the 2nd and 3rd, because that is truly all I remember about it, is that I really loved the atmosphere and the magic system. I have no idea what's going on plot-wise, so I think I do need to reread the first book, or at least a really detailed plot synopsis, before jumping onto 2 and 3. I'm realizing how many of these are like, I don't know what they're about. Oh, that's good. That's a good sign. Okay, so this was an impulse purchase. I have no idea how this was recommended to me. It's something that I was browsing. It fed it to me as a recommendation, and I'm excited for this. I think we're still in the perfect time of year to enjoy the Virgo Book of Witches, edited together by Sharuka. Handwriting. Give me one in plain text print. No, they're not going to do that for me, are they? So this is a collection of folklore around witches from around the world. They're sort of broken up by alluring women and ailing knights, wise old women, witches in love, possessive women and devoted wives, transformations, the guardians of seasons and elements, witchy devices, cauldrons, broomsticks, and trysts with the devil, hungry hags, cannibals and bloodsuckers, and trials and contests. And so, oh, there's her name. There's her name written out. Yeah. So no N's in there. Shahrukh Hussain. And so we have like tales and then where they're from. So like this first one is from, is an Indian folk tale. I saw Irish when I was flipping through here before. We have Scottish, Breton, Sicilian. I'm really excited about this little collection of tales, and I feel like this will be like a perfect bedtime read because each is its own little connected thing, perfect for this sort of autumnal spooky season. The next book was recommended to me because I was picking up a lot of horror reads, horror by women. I have read Baby Teeth by Zoe Stage, and I enjoyed Baby Teeth, but didn't find it that disturbing. That might have in part been because of the audiobook, because I hated the way that the narrator did the children's voice in Baby Teeth, because I feel like creepy children are pretty like creepy staples. So that was like a 3-star for me, I believe. But this is Wonderland by Zoe Stage, and let me tell you, Shirley Jackson meets The Shining, which was kind of enough. I put that in my cart at that point. I love Shirley Jackson, and The Shining is probably a story that is like the most consumed. I've watched the Kubrick adaptation for 11 years, every year, and I've read The Shining twice now, and I loved it both times. It does stand up as one of my favorites by Stephen King. So to see Shirley Jackson meets The Shining, this sounds like it should be for me. One mother's love may be all that stands between her family, an enigmatic presence, and madness. So it's about Orla and Shaw, who settle into the perfect farmhouse with their 2 children, and they are both charmed and unsettled by the expanse of their land, the privacy of their individual bedrooms, and the isolation of a life a mile from any neighborhood. But none of the Bennets could expect what lies waiting in the woods, where secrets run dark and deep. And something is calling from the family from under the earth, beneath the trees, and within their minds. And like, this just sounds so fucking good. We have creepy forests, we have isolation, we have family shit, and The Shining meets Shirley Jackson. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And the last book that I physically have in my hands at this moment is What Will Build by Oliver Jeffers. So Oliver Jeffers is my favorite children's book author. He is an amazing artist. I have a couple of his like big like collector books. I love the way he illustrates. He is just so much fun to look at. And his books usually have a pretty, like, good message. They're fun to read. Sometimes they're very silly. Like the whole The Boy series is very silly, very adorable. I get so much joy out of seeing the, like, deadpan expression on the penguin and the boy's face. They're excellent. And again, I have no idea what it's about, but it's Oliver Jeffers, and that's like an instant buy for me at this point. Oliver Jeffers is delightful, and you should go check him out on Instagram. I will link his Instagram down below. Which brings me to the books that I don't physically have in my possession yet. So I have pre-ordered a few things. Now I feel really bad. I pre-ordered quite a few things because I'm losing my discount. I lost my discount when I quit at Indigo. I feel like I need to justify this, but so many people have been hauling and hauling and hauling, so it's a booktube staple. I shouldn't feel bad. January 13th, Across the Green Grass Fields by Seanan McGuire comes out. This is the 7th book in the Wayward Children series. I have loved those. They are delightful, creepy little novellas about children who have stepped through a portal into a fantasy world, and that is their perfect world, and then somehow they've ended up back in the real world and life fucking sucks and they want to get back to their true home. And it's adventures through portals. I love the concept. I love the execution. I love the diversity of the characters within the fantasy space, so very excited for Across the Green Grass Fields. Then on February 17th, The Centaur's Wife by Amanda Leduc comes out. So The Centaur's Wife. Heather is sleeping peacefully after the birth of her twin daughters when the sound of the world ending jolts her awake. Stumbling outside with her babies and her new husband Brendan, she finds that their city has been destroyed by falling meteors, and that her little family are among the only few who survived. But the mountain that looms over the city is still green. Somehow it has been spared the destruction that brought humanity to the brink of extinction. Heather is one of the few who know the mountain, the place city dwellers have always been forbidden to go. Her dad took her up the mountain when she was a child on a misguided quest to heal her legs, damaged at birth. The tragedy that resulted has shaped her life, bringing her both great sorrow and an undying connection to the deep magic of the mountain, made real by the beings she and her dad encountered that day. We're gonna have some fantasy, we're gonna have some disability rep. I'm excited, and I expect nothing less of Amanda Leduc because those are themes that she is deeply interested in and personally connected to. I loved Leduc's cultural study / memoir, Disfigured. I read it for Tifa, and I've talked about it in 2 videos recently. I will link one above or in the description box down below if you want to hear my thoughts on Disfigured. She's very interested in folk and fairy stories, that she's writing a novel. I'm here for it. March 2nd, I have Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab coming. This is the 3rd book in a series. It's about a girl whose parents are ghost hunters, and they're filming this reality TV show where they're like hunting for ghosts and, like, you know, the super cheesy like ghost hunter type show. The catch is that their daughter actually can see ghosts and talk to ghosts and move beyond the veil into death. And they don't know that. So they're taking her to all of the most haunted places around the world for this reality TV show, and she's having real experiences with real ghosts. March 10th, Return of the Trickster by Eden Robinson. It's the 3rd book in the Trickster trilogy. Son of a Trickster by Eden Robinson. The first half of this book is bleak. So this is the story of Jared Martin. So he is a 16-year-old Indigenous high school burnout. His mom is a drug addict and a drug dealer and incredibly volatile and violent and impulsive, and is often violent towards Jared when he displeases her. Witnessing Jared spend the first half of this book stoned or drunk and making really poor decisions and getting beat up and getting abused, it was incredibly bleak. The last half of the book, and I'm gonna say this because I feel like if you don't know this, you'll probably put it down. The last half of the book becomes this magical, rich fantasy. It is mind-boggling in how stark a contrast there is between the front and back half of this book. There's like intergenerational trauma narrative at the beginning, and then halfway through she was like, you know what, this needs some indigenous folklore, indigenous spirituality, and magic. And like the last half of the book is just like, bam, magic. Because I was going into this having heard that this was like indigenous fantasy literature, I was expecting a lot more fantasy right off the bat, and so like it was incredibly hard to get into. But once I got to the end, I flew through the end, absolutely loved it, and moved almost immediately into the sequel, which is Trickster Drift. This involves a cleaner, more sober Jared moving away from his mother, finding a family and a community, and going to school, going to university. And it's really interesting to see new voices like this emerging in fantasy literature and making changes to what we consider fantasy literature. I'm very excited to watch the adaptation because Robinson's works are so good. She is such a phenomenal writer, and she so deserves this adaptation. I will leave a link to it down below. Then on April 21st, Cait in Waiting is Becky Albertalli's latest book. So, Cait in Waiting. Contrary to popular belief, best friends Kate Garfield and Anderson Walker are not codependent. Carpooling to and from theater rehearsals, environmentally sound and efficient. Consulting each other on every single life decision, basic good judgment. Pining for the same guys from afar? Shared crushes are more fun anyway. But when Cait and Andy's latest long-distance crush shows up at their school, everything goes off script. Matt Olson is talented and sweet, and Cait likes him. She really likes him. The only problem? So does Anderson. Turns out communal crushes aren't so fun when real feelings are involved. This one might even bring curtains down on Cait and Anderson's friendship. I just find the way that she writes young people is delightful. Again, I like the diversity in her works. She's one of those authors who is very careful. Like, there's a sect of authors right now who are doing a really good job of calling out like whiteness as like not the default. And so like Julie Murphy is another author who's really good for this, where like she'll describe some people in a class and it's not like, oh, my black friend and my Asian friend and like all of your other friends are assumed white. It's like, oh, the white kid that sits in front of me, his name is Jimmy, and the black kid that sits beside me, his name is Steve. I just like how they're conscious of this in their writing and they're making very deliberate choices, and I think it's important. I love her work. The last book that I pre-ordered comes out May 5th, and that is The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. So this is the 4th book in the Wayfarers series. With no water, no air, and no native life, the planet Gora is unremarkable. The only thing it has going for it is a chance proximity to more popular worlds, making it a decent stopover for ships traveling between the wormholes that keep the galactic commons connected. If deep space is a highway, Gora is just your average truck stop. At the 5-hop one-stop, long-haul spacers can stretch their legs, if they have legs, that is, and get fuel, transmit permits, and assorted supplies. The 5-hop is run by an enterprising alien and her sometimes helpful child, who work hard to provide the little pieces of home to everyone passing through. When a freak technological failure halts all traffic to and from Gora, 3 strangers, all different species with different aims, are thrown together at the 5-hop. Grounded with nothing to do but wait, the trio, an exiled artist with an appointment to keep, a cargo runner at a personal crossroads, and a mysterious individual doing her best to help those on the fringes, are compelled to confront where they have been, where they might go, what they are, or could be, to each other. I just love her work. I love the world that she's building, and I'm excited for it. So that is my book haul. That is the last of my Indigo discount. And I am sad. No more cheap books. But I certainly have enough to read. There's no shortage of things to read, so it will be okay. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books in the comments down below. Have you heard of these? Have you read any of these? Are there any that I should prioritize? And I guess with my pre-order list, you've seen some of my highly anticipated things for 2021. Are you looking forward to any books coming out in 2021? Thank you, patrons, for making videos like this possible. If you are interested in supporting the channel, a link to the Patreon page is in the description box down below, along with a whole host of other links and things for you to check out. Stay safe, and I will see you soon. Bye!